All right, let's discuss this now and the new government of national unity after the cabinet announcement was made last night by the president. And joining me for this conversation is ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snugi Zikalala. He joins us on the virtual platform, and in studio is former DA, Member of Parliament and diplomat Douglas Gibson. He is in studio. Mr. Gibson, I want to start with you here in studio. There seems to be a crisis in Gauteng. You believe that it's small issues that are not insurmountable. This essentially can be resolved. Is that your view?
Well, Premier Panyaza Lesufi has forgotten that he's only the Premier because the DA voted for him. Firstly. Secondly, he's in the first stage of grief, which is denial that the voters rejected him and his party because they were unsatisfactory as the rulers of Gauteng over the last few years. And he needs to take those into account. And the third thing is he's got 28 seats and the DA's got 22. And he mustn't now be greedy and try to grab far more than he's entitled to. The DA really wants to make Gauteng work and wants to make Lesufi look good for a change, and our own people to look good. But the most important thing is to serve the people of this province.
In your view, if these two parties are unable to find each other, could it place the national government in jeopardy?
No, I don't think it would do that. The national government has set the tone and the example, and I'm quite sure that if Mr. Lesufi is unreasonable, the DA won't agree with him, and if he's unreasonable, President Ramaphosa will take out the whip.
Well, let's find out from the Veterans League of the ANC. Dr. Zikalala, Mr. Gibson here is saying these are stages of grief that Premier Lesufi is dealing with. He needs to get over those very quickly in order for a government to be formed in Gauteng. Do you agree with the sentiment?
Well, I agree that a resolution will be found on this matter. It has been going on for more than a week. And Premier Panyaza Lesufi did say that an agreement will be reached. And of course, we as veterans would like to see the agreement being reached. And of course, that agreement will be based on what the national has said which parties should they negotiate with. We can't enter into any agreement with a party that does not respect our constitution and also that does not respect the rule of law. And so there are two parties like that. And so we can talk to anybody. But fundamental principles is that we will talk to parties that believe in the constitution of South Africa and the rule of law. And as veterans, we believe that these are gremlin. And I was happy to hear that the provincial secretary said that the Secretary General of the ANC was going to take part and ensure that an agreement is reached. And of course, that's his role. And so I believe definitely our SG will intervene and an agreement will be reached. And so these are gremlin. And of course, during negotiation, it's a question of give and take. There are tensions, but those tensions should not hamper the formation of government because it's the people that suffer. And so I think both parties must make sure that they come to an agreement and so that a government is established and so that people can get the quality service that they deserve.
Dr. Zikalala, I don't want to belabor the point of what is going on at Gauteng because we want for this discussion to be an all-encompassing discussion that looks ahead after the formation of the cabinet that was announced last night. But I've got to ask you the question about Gauteng, because it does seem that the ANC in the province is ready to move on without the Democratic Alliance. And as one of the journalists asks the question there is, if the ANC does not find each other with the Democratic Alliance, are you open to working with the EFF and the MK party? Because these are your only options, and there wasn't a clear answer to that question. As a senior leader of the ANC, is the party open in Gauteng to work with these two parties outside of the DA?
Well, I don't know. I'm not involved in the negotiations in Gauteng, but there's a framework agreement that the ANC has, and that's a decision of the NEC, which is a high decision-making body, that they to parties that believe in the rule of law, parties that believe in our constitutional values, parties that believe in proper governance. And of course, two of those parties that do not believe in the constitution of the country and the rule of law is EFF and the MK party. And so we can't enter into an agreement with such parties. It's a decision of the NEC. So the province will definitely have to listen to what National is saying, because it's a policy of the African National Congress, because we want to serve people with people who are credible, people who believe in the rule of law, people who ensure that there's governance, and people who ensure that the society gets the service that it deserves, not from individuals coming from other parties who have nefarious reasons of entering into any agreements. We have seen exactly in areas where EFF is governed with us, in Ekurhuleni, what happened in Ekurhuleni? We understand that there was mass looting there. And so we cannot allow that to happen as African National Congress. That money must go and service the society. Currently, the provincial government itself it's a provincial government that unites all South Africans. The voters said we should work together. And so right now, the president made it very clear that there's no more finger pointing. And I was happy to hear Steenhuisen says this government, meaning that they will serve the South African government. When they enter into government, they don't serve the DA, neither do they serve the ANC, but they serve the South African government. And so that's what we want to see happening in Gauteng as well.
All right.
So that every individual who enters into provincial government of unity must serve society, not his party or her party, but must serve society and must serve the provincial government.
All right, Dr. Zikalala, very clear on this point that the ANC in Gauteng has got to toe the line. All right, let's bring the discussion now to why
I wanted just to respond briefly to that, to say I really like Snooky Zikalala, and I really like the real MK veterans and not the pseudo-political party that pinched their name.
Okay, this could descend to a completely different topic, but let's bring it back. Okay, let's talk then about this historic new government that was announced yesterday. I want to start off with the people of South Africa, Mr. Gibson, if you will allow, and to gauge your sense as to whether you think that the people are more interested in the politics of this country, given what has resulted of the elections. Do you believe that the people now are genuinely interested in how the government is going to be run in South Africa?
I think the people of South Africa dictated how the new government should be constituted, and they must be thrilled and proud, as I am, of South Africa. We're busy working together. We've put something totally new together that we haven't had for 30 years, and it's a time of new hope and really new wonderful prospects for our country.
Yeah. Dr. Zikalala, can I also pose a similar question to you? The GNU process, and if you like, much like Mr. Gibson, you want to venture into the electoral outcome. Do you believe that this has generated a renewed interest in the people about how their government is run, and perhaps more importantly, who should run their government as a people?
Yeah, well, I think the people of South Africa made it very clear on the 29th of May that they want South Africans to work together. Africans of all racial groups, people, so-called colored people, Indians people, black people, that we should all work together and build this country. And so now that the government of national unity has been established, I think it's a joy for everybody to see that everybody, every individual South African citizen and patriots are committed in ensuring that we work together, we build this country, we bring about economic development in this country, we transform the economy of the country, we fix what has been broken. We fix the municipalities, we create jobs in the country, we bring peace and stability in the country. That's what all South Africans want to see. And so we as veterans, we are very proud that at last, especially after a month, the president announced a comprehensive cabinet, though it's big, consisting of 77 ministers and deputy ministers. But we believe that this government, that is the seventh administration, will bring about economic growth, will bring about social cohesion, will bring about jobs in the country. That's what our people need. Will bring about stability in the country. And so we believe that we are on the right track. And as veterans, we do support the government of national unity in Gauteng, and we support the role that has been played by our negotiators to reach such an agreement that we reached, of course, 30 years ago when we took over in 1994. And so we're very happy with the prospects so far, and we'd like to see all the ministers who are going to be sworn in tomorrow, swearing and we are happy that they work as South Africans. And so it's a new terrain. And of course, it's an uncharted waters. We don't know where it's going to head, but the ANC is committed to the government of national unity.
Mr. Gibson, I can't gloss over the fact that this is probably the biggest cabinet we have ever seen in this country. And so, with its size, will come expectation that it delivers. But we've got to deal with that point first, of it being a massive cabinet, and included in it is the Democratic Alliance, a party which has said time and time again that cabinet must reduce in size so that there isn't wastage. Is the DA happy to be a participant in such a large cabinet?
The DA has 6 cabinet ministers and 6 deputy ministers. And then there's padding going up to, is it 70? I can't remember how
Indeed.
many ministers and
70.
deputy ministers. Well, I must say, I think a number of the deputy ministers need not have been appointed. They could have been made chairman of portfolio committees or sent off to be consuls somewhere or other. I think the government is too big. But because it's so big, it's really going to have to deliver, because the people of South Africa are demanding delivery.
If it is going to deliver, there are deepening levels of poverty in the country. There is a dangerous lack of social cohesion in this country. Do you believe that this is the government that is going to reverse these social ills?
What I believe is that the Democratic Alliance members of this government are going to do their darndest to move South Africa in the right direction. We've said, and I saw tonight, John Steenhuisen, whom I know personally, is a friend of mine. I've got great confidence in him as a leader and as a person. And he said the DA continues wanting to rescue South Africa. And the worst part of our country at the moment is this huge unemployment. You've got millions of people who are unemployed. You've got millions of young people who have no future. And one of the 3 principles that the DA is bringing to this government is, firstly, there must be stability. We need a stable government. Secondly, respect for the Constitution. But thirdly, and really most importantly, is a laser-like focus on economic growth. And because growth is the only way in which we'll produce the jobs for these people. Yeah. And we'll reduce the inequality and reduce the poverty. That's the focus. And I think all the ministers, whether they're from DA or from any of the other parties, I do hope that they'll focus on that.
Yeah. All right, we'll come back to the question of the economy because that is what stands between jobs being created and people slowly moving away from poverty. Mr. Zikalala, let's come back to you. The deepening levels of socio-economic inequalities, Mr. Gibson has already dealt with that these are worrying. But when you listen to the chair of council of the Democratic Alliance, Helen Zille, who says today that the DA is not going to go to government to implement ANC policies, it begs the question, whose policies are going to be implemented in this government? And is that a good starting point for this GNU?
Well, they are not implementing ANC policies, but they are implementing the National Government of Unity policies. They have agreed, all of them, when agreement was signed, that there'll be economic, rapid, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. There'll be fixed investments. That's what they agreed to. There'll be job creation. There'll be transformation. There'll be land reform, and there'll be industrialization. That's what the parties agreed to. The parties agreed to that they'll deal with poverty, spatial inequality, food security, high cost of living. That's what they've agreed to. They've agreed that there'll be stable and effective government. They've agreed that there'll be investment in people. That's what the parties agreed to. And so that's what they'll also build capacity in the state. And so they'll be implementing the agreement that was signed when they came into the Government of National Unity. Now, all that you are saying, Chloe, is that it is not if they will do, is that it must happen. Every minister, every deputy minister must make sure that this agreement is implemented to the fullest. Because if it does not, our people will be disappointed. We cannot allow that to happen. And so all parties that have agreed to this GNU, what is important is people to understand that when they signed, when they were taken oath tomorrow, they take an oath to the allegiance to the Constitution of South Africa, that they will serve South African society, not politics, not ANC, not the African National Congress, not the DA, not IFP, not a patriotic alliance, but they'll serve the South African nation. That's what is important. And at the same time, that is why we are saying that it was the prerogative of the government, of the president, to select ministers and deputy ministers. Of course, he had to go and consult the DA when he's selecting ministers from the DA. He has to consult the IFP when he's selecting IFP ministers, and he had to consult the ANC Secretary General when he's going to appoint the members of the African National Congress who will serve in his government. And so the president is the head of that government, and they serve at the behest of the president. They are not serving Cyril as Comrade Cyril as the president of the ANC, but they serve him as the president of South Africa. But also, they won't be serving Helen Zille, they won't be serving Shabisa, they won't be serving Gauteng Mackenzie. They'll be serving the country itself. And so there is no party politics. And of course, make sure that they respect the Constitution of South Africa, which for us is non-negotiable. And of course, most of the other parties are saying serving the Constitution of South Africa is non-negotiable. For us as veterans, that's what we are saying.
Mr. Gibson, I'm going to also ask that you weigh in on the comments of Helen Zille, but you'll have to hold that thought. We need to take a break. So we are discussing the newly formed Government of National Unity, and with me for this conversation is ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snugi Zikalala and former DA Member of Parliament and diplomat Douglas Gibson. Mr. Gibson, I want to come back to you. Helen Zille, the comments he made today on the radio.
Well, let me say that I love Helen Zille.
Yeah.
We're on kissing and hugging terms, and we've got a family connection that goes back to her father and my wife did postal votes together more than 35 years ago. So I have a very warm feeling for Helen and her efforts on behalf of the party, which are totally unselfish. She wasn't negotiating a position for herself, and she was doing her best for the party.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the context of this statement of hers, which is that we weren't there to execute ANC policy. Just bear in mind that ANC policy has led to the situation that we find ourselves in now. That's 30 years they've been trying to apply that policy, and most of it, or much of it, has been a failure. So what we've got to do as a new government of national unity is to move around, focus on the things that are going to uplift our people, get them out of poverty, get them out of unemployment, and forget about some of the ideologies, and forget about some of the people like the SACP who never fight an election, but they've got a lot to say about what should happen in South Africa. It's their recipe that's failed.
But are these helpful comments, given that this is a newfound way of working? The problem here is that, do they come from a good place? That we're not there to execute on ANC policies. Whose policies are you going to execute? Because, quite frankly, it is the ANC that has set policy for this country for the past 30 years.
Yes.
So,
but we have a government of national unity. We don't have an ANC government. And the views of all of us are going to have to be taken into account. I think it's perfectly fair to say that what we need is to have a new approach, a fresh approach, a young approach. And that's one of the things that the DA brings to this new cabinet.
Yeah.
Youthfulness, new energy. Instead of a lot of those old people who've been serving in the cabinet, we're bringing people now as deputy ministers and ministers. They're almost all in their 30s or their 40s. And that's wonderful for South Africa because they resonate with the young people. I believe one of the problems of negotiating a government of national unity in a matter of 20 or 30 days is that it's too short a time. What we really need in the next period, next 30 or 40 days or whatever, is for them to sit down at a Lekgotla or wherever and work out what the program of the GNU is going to be. And that, I think, is what Helen is really trying to drive at.
Okay. If we are then going to grow the economy, I'd like for you to quickly opine on the people that occupy the economic cluster ministries. Are those, in the DA's view, the right people that are going to take the country forward if we are to go back to your point of economic growth that is going to resolve the unemployment and poverty issue?
Look, bear in mind that I'm not here as a spokesperson of the DA. I'm here as a has-been politician, diplomat and chief whip and a few other things, expressing my own views. Now, I've looked at the makeup of the cabinet and I find it very interesting. I think there's some really good people there in various political parties. I'm pleased to see Enoch Godongwana back as the Minister of Finance. He's generally accepted in the financial community, international community, as somebody who knows what he's doing. And that competence is really the most important thing in all of this. He's got a couple of good deputies, one of whom is a chap called Ashore Sarupen from the DA, 36 years old, a string of degrees, such a clever, good chap. And with energy and vitality, he comes from the Springs area. And I just think it's wonderful that somebody like that is in the finance portfolio.
He also happens to be the DA's sort of head of policy, if I'm not mistaken. He's
the head of policy is Matt Cuthbert,
right,
who's also a very good chap. He hasn't made the cut this time, but perhaps soon he will do. I like him very much and would push him as well. But then you have a look at the various others. You have a look at trade and industry. Parks Tower was welcomed generally. I've got mixed feelings about him, but I can't see anybody else in the ANC who would have done better. And there's some really good people there. Andrew Whitfield is the DA Deputy Minister, and he's from the Eastern Cape. I knew his father and his grandfather, in fact, who were in politics, and he's been the DA spokesperson on police, and it'd be very interesting to see him come to light in this. And then you've got John Steenhuisen in agriculture. I mean, some people think, well, he's not really a farmer, but what they don't appreciate is that agriculture is enormously important in South Africa, firstly in terms of employment. Hundreds of thousands of people are employed in the agricultural community. Secondly, it's extremely important in terms of feeding South Africans. We've got to feed ourselves. And the third one is earning foreign exchange, exporting all over the world. We have good export, but what we've got to do is to improve the facilities, the railways, the harbours, all of that, and to get to the stage where we're really enjoying the benefit. So that's at least 3 areas in the economic cluster that I think are important, and I'm very pleased with the people who are manning them.
Dr. Zikalala, let's give you a chance to weigh in on the economic cluster ministries. Is that a good makeup? Are those fit and proper people to quickly turn things around for the economy?
Yeah, I think in trade and industry, we've got Comrade Parks. He has been causes the charges of how deputy minister. And of course, he has a very good, solid team that we worked with at Gauteng, in turning especially municipalities around. And of course, we've got young up-and-coming comrade by the name of Zuko Godlimbi, a bright young comrade, and is committed to economic transformation of the country. And I think that team will definitely bring about transformation, of course, of DTI, will bring about to ensure that black industrialists are being looked after professionally and properly. And of course, in finance, you have Dr. Masondo, and he has been there for the past 5 years, and I think he has done exceptionally well. And Inokolongwan, I think this is a good team, the good team of South Africans, South African patriots. I'm not saying that the ANC, I'm not saying that DA, but I'm saying they are South African patriots. I think we should learn that we're working together as South African patriots to build this economy together instead of pointing fingers at each other. And so we as veterans were very happy that the team that has been assembled is a team that will bring about economic growth, the team that will ensure that we get rid of poverty in the country. It's a team that will make sure that more jobs are created in the country, a team that will make sure that we bring about stability. That's all that we want in the country. And so as veterans, we're very proud of the young women and men have been selected and appointed, will be sworn in tomorrow, that they are committed to build South Africa together. But of course, the cabinet is too big. 77 is too big. In some areas, we have 3 deputies. I think that it should have been cut, but it's done already. Let's leave it with what we have. But there should be performance appraisals, and there should be accountability. Every minister, deputy minister who's there must be held accountable. And what is important, of course, for us as veterans, we must have ethical leaders who are there. They must be ethical. Immediately, if they are found wanting, they are found to have their pockets in the cookie jar, the law must take its course immediately. And so we as veterans, we are happy with the new path that has been set. And we hope that in the next 2 years, we'll see about a proper economic development of the country. The country's economy will start ticking. Investors will start coming into the country. And of course, we'll have stability. And of course, jobs for our people. Our people want jobs, 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 and nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I think the team that is there will make sure that that happens.
Talking about stability, Mr. Gibson, we can't talk about stability without looking at safety and security in the country, and I'm going to start with the police ministry. You have now Minister Senzo Mchunu in that portfolio. Previously, he was at water and sanitation. Do you believe that we are on the right path here in reducing crime? I'm sure we all would like to eliminate it, but at least let's talk reduction, because it's not going to be eliminated overnight.
You'll never eliminate crime entirely in South Africa or anywhere else in the world. But the crime figures in South Africa are just absolutely shocking. And one of the reasons for that is that there is insufficient accountability. People can commit crimes and not pay for them. We have to get to the stage where if you commit a crime, the chances are pretty good that you're going to be arrested and tried, and if found guilty, convicted and jailed. That's where we need to be. I thought the previous Minister of Police, General Cwele, I thought he was a disaster. If only he'd taken his hat off a little bit. I just thought he had such bad manners. Wherever he appeared, he had to have that hat on, indoors and outdoors. And he appeared as a PR minister rather than somebody who was dealing with the oversight of the police. He sort of overshadowed the police commissioner, who to me seems like a good bloke. And I'm just hoping that the new minister will take the lessons from the old. We've had a succession of unfortunate ministers of police, starting right with Fikile Mbalula, who I thought was a disaster there, and several others. I don't want to damn them all, but this current chap, the new guy, was the Premier of KZN, and he's a very experienced politician, and he's got a good reputation. So I'm hoping that he will bring about some of the changes that South Africans are demanding.
Yeah. Dr. Zikalala, part of the security makeup includes the Defence Force, because those are the people that look after the borders of our country should trouble come. There's a new minister there, Minister NG Motshekga. I found myself questioning, of course, I'm not going to quote social media, but I found myself questioning why the president would make this decision of moving Minister NG Motshekga from education to defense when, in all probability, she should have been retired, unless I'm wrong.
Well, you may be wrong, and she still has energy. And I've been having discussions. So I saw her the last time we had an NEC meeting. She still has energy, and I think she can still contribute. And so it is the president's prerogative. The president is confident in her that he can be able to rebuild the South African National Defence Force. And of course, let's give her all the support that she deserves. And of course, she's been assisted by experienced former general, he remains general, Holomisa. And so it will be a good team. And of course, we as veterans, we are happy that both of them are there, and they'll be accessible. And because veterans, especially ex-combatants, both of APLA, Azanla, and ANC, have not been well looked after. And so this the minister is dative, and she'll make sure that ex-combatants are well looked after, because our ex-combatants have not been looked after. And of course, it's our fault. And we as veterans have been fighting to make sure that we look after our ex-combatants throughout the whole world. Ex-combatants are well looked after by their governments. But within us, there were serious problems in that area. And I hope those problems won't recur anymore with Comrade Angie there and Comrade Holomisa being there. And so I think there'll be stability. I think there'll be accountability. That's what is important. What is important is accountability. All those ministers must be held accountable and they must serve society. And so we as veterans, we're happy. And let's not judge them, especially Comrade Angie, that deliver. But if she knows that she's been nominated, we as veterans, at all NEC meetings, NWC meetings, will make sure that we hold these ministers accountable because they have to serve society. And so we are happy with the composition. Of course, we're happy with General Holomisa being there. And we hope that problems of ex-combatants will be solved. And they must be solved because those are human errors that have been made by certain individuals who were in those positions previously.
Dr. Snugi, I want to thank you very much for your time. Mr. Gibson, completely out of time.
I wanted to respond about Angie Motshekga, a third or fourth old woman in a row who's been appointed. I think the minister, with all respect, the president has made a mistake. He should have gone outside Parliament. He should have brought in somebody like Major General Roy Anderson, who was president of the Stock Exchange, and many big companies. There's the sort of chap you need to pull the Defence Force right and to safeguard South Africa and its borders, its coastline, our soldiers in the DRC and internally. So I think that's an unfortunate appointment.
Douglas Gibson, a former DA Member of Parliament and a diplomat, joining us tonight. To both of the gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.